And welcome to our broadcast channels. We are broadcasting this on Meet the Light, on my channel, Natural Energy Healing, and on Philip's channels, Universal Truth. I wanted to get on here and talk to Philippe about his recent trip to Egypt, and we have a few pictures to share, and he will also be talking about his experience. So I'm really excited about this because I don't know what his experiences are yet. So I'm going to be learning along with everyone else today. So, Philippe, you want to take it away from here and kind of give your introduction and how we're going to handle the broadcast today?
Yeah, well, thank you for that great introduction. It's been an exciting time, and I think since midway through my uh, visit in Egypt, the energies have just kept climbing and climbing, and today, it's last couple of days, it's just off the charts, which is great, which is what we've all been waiting for. But going to Giza itself, going to visit the pyramids, has been something that, like a calling that I've had for a while. Um, I think about 6 years now. I was down in Luxor before, Temple of Karnak, and I thought I've got to get to the pyramid at some stage. So from then, it was just something that I felt I needed to do. And the last few months, it was just a snap decision. I thought, right, it feels right. I need to go. And the stars lined up, all the relevant doors opened, everything worked, and off I went. So last Tuesday, I flew into Cairo. And one thing I will say is that if you're a bit squeamish about driving, hold on to your socks because it's like Mario Kart in Cairo. It's crazy. There's no respect for lanes. It's just they just make it's a very wide motorway, 7 lanes, and it's just there's no lanes. It's literally just driving around each other, hooting and waving out the window. It's like crazy stuff, but it's entertaining. Yeah, it's like a bit of bit of a race. But yeah, so and I was fortunate to grab a small hotel, literally a few hundred yards from the main gate um, to the Sphinx. There are 2 entrances in the Giza Plateau. One to the eastern side, which is where one of the big posh hotels is, and then on the south side, where the Sphinx is another entrance. And the cheaper hotels, guest houses tend to be down that side. So I chose that because one, I didn't. It's much further to travel. The other entrance on this side is much closer. So I arrived and met super friendly people. The Egyptians are all friendly. Everybody's on the take. Everybody wants to make a buck, right? And they're trying to sell you everything. But I made a joke out of it. I made a game out of it, and everybody had a laugh. So it was great. I actually enjoyed it, mixing it up with the people. So I arrived at the hotel, which is the Royal Pyramid Inn Hotel, and put on my bags down and went upstairs on the these sort of dining room, breakfast areas all in one place, which is on the rooftop, which is in this part of the world. There tends to be rooftop stuff. Everything happens on the roof, meetings, etc. And the dining rooms are basically on the roof. It's all open air stuff on the roof. So, um,
You have a picture from that night. Do you want me to show that?
yeah, somebody's messaging me about services. And wow, now. Let me just shut that down. But so you can see the hotel next to me with the lights strung up. And beyond that, you can see the 3 main pyramids. So at the right-hand side, the Pyramid of Cheops is slightly obscured, which is the big pyramid with the king's chamber. And directly in front is the Pyramid of Khafre, which is one of the major kings. He built a lot of the structures around the Giza Plateau. And in front, you can't see because of the lighting. The Sphinx is just in front of that. And to the left of that, the smaller pyramid. And for the life of me, I don't remember that king's name, but it's smaller and it's not completely finished, but it's almost finished. Um, In total, there are nine pyramids on the plateau. In front of the Cheops, there's 3 other pyramids, which is for the queen and the queen mother. So they're smaller, but there's 3 there. And to the left-hand side, you can just make out in the distance some of the other pyramid sizes. There's another 3 down there, which are for queens and lesser royalty. So in total, there are 9 pyramids on the plateau.
Okay.
And most you can visit the one Khafre in the center. They've closed that a year ago, and I couldn't find out why they've done that, but they did close it, so it's no longer accessible. But the Queen's Pyramid in front of the Cheops Pyramid is accessible. You can go inside that, and there's a few tombs. And what I didn't realize, I thought the Temple of Isis was all the way down in Aswan, but that's actually a rebuild later on. It's not the original. The original Temple of Isis, where most of the Ananian theology teachings took place, is actually right outside, literally 100 yards on the eastern side of the Great Pyramid of Cheops. And if you walk through it, if you are not told about that it's a temple, you think it's just a bunch of ruins with a few pillars. But the archaeologist that I met, he explained all these things to me, and it was just like, wow, I did not realize. He basically recreated, said to me, this is where this was, these were the stairs, this was the entrance, and he showed me, and it's the oldest temple in Egypt, and it's the reason why Cheops actually built the pyramid there, was to be next to the Temple of Isis. That's why they built the way they are. That's the story of the archaeologist. Now, spiritually, I don't know so much, but this is the official story that's told in the archaeologist circles. So that was interesting to find out the structure and the layout of the Giza complex. And there's a tomb of Osiris as well. The Temple of Osiris hasn't been found, but it's believed to be buried somewhere on the plateau, and it's meant to be equidistant from the Sphinx and to the Temple of Isis. They form a triangle because the Sphinx is actually the temple for Horus. Hor means horizon, which is what the Sphinx is looking out to the east, to the horizon, where the rising sun, which is Ra, comes up in the mornings. And the Temple of Isis is behind that to the left, and the Temple of Osiris is behind that to the right. And the 3 of them form a triangle. Everything's about triangles. So
I see that you have a picture of Osiris, sort of a 3. Do you want me to show that one with that?
Can do, yeah. Okay. We can just have a quick chat about that.
Explain that a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So that image was taken in the old museum in Cairo itself, because the new museum is actually much closer. It's literally a mile or so from the Giza complex, the new museum, and it's absolutely amazing. The structure, it's taken a long time to build, but it's absolutely amazing. But this image is from the old museum, and it depicts, in the center you've got Osiris. I've labeled the images. To the left you've got Heru, and to the right we've got Set, who basically signifies the ego, and Heru signifying the enlightened self, who becomes basically the incarnated higher self, and Osiris being the original higher self. They also call him the god of death, the god of darkness. He's the one apparently there's mixed sort of information about that, where some believe one thing, others believe another thing, where he's the one that judges and says, when you weigh your heart on the scales, he decides if you're going up north or south, basically.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I believe that.
Yeah, it's more of a, for me, it's always been like the higher self imagery.
Yeah, for sure. I I found this was interesting whenever you shared this, that the Osiris and many of the statues, I've only seen pictures, I haven't been to Egypt yet, but where they're holding, you see in the hands in front there, the Egyptian healing rods, which I love the Egyptian healing rods. So
Yeah,
I was glad
no,
to see
you're a
that
big
you got a picture of that.
yeah. So that was interesting. I ended up explaining. There was a Russian couple who spoke very little English, and I ended up explaining the story of Osiris and how Set tried to dispose of him to take his place and get together with Isis, etc., and the rebirth and reincarnation, and the story, the battle of Set battle, etc. So that was quite cool to be able to connect with people at that level and share that story. Yeah,
Sure.
which is
Very
something
good.
that when we run the retreats, I'll be sharing all that kind of information with people that don't know the story. It's quite important because that story actually, if you look at most religions, that story it belongs. The story of the higher self and the battle. Each religion has that story, but in a different version. But they all have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, very interesting. So that was on the first day settling in, and the second day I'd resigned myself to the fact that because I was new and never been to the Giza Plateau before, I was going to go into the Giza complex, and my hotelier suggested I grab a camel ride and get taken around. It would cut down time, and I could then spot all the places I'd want to spend time on instead of walking, because it's many, many miles to get around. It's a big place. So the second day I did that, went around and got some reference points, and got immersed in the culture, and with everybody trying to sell you everything under the sun. So that was a bit of a
You said you
fun
took a
time.
camel. Did you say you took a camel ride?
Yeah, took a camel ride, and my guide was on a horse. The name of my camel was Michael Jackson. I got some, and the name of the horse of
Was
the
that
guide
your
was.
first camel ride?
No, I'd been on one before when I was in the
Okay.
Luxor years before. But yeah, it's always a bit of a dangerous situation when the camel stands up. If you don't hold on tight, there's a chance you could be ejected, because it's quite a violent procedure. Once you're up, it's okay, but the standing up and sitting down is quite a tricky situation.
Well,
But
I
they
don't
are
have a
quite.
picture to show of that. You should have had a picture of your camel ride. That's fun.
I do have some, but I haven't posted those up yet. I do have some, yeah.
Okay.
And the horse that the guide had was Mona Lisa. And halfway around our trip, we had to get off and do the touristy poses, and he was snapping away with my phone, taking all these weird pictures that he does with all the tourists. And I was sort of petting the horse, and it was a gentle, like a 3 or 4 year old mare. And he said, "Oh, do you like the horse?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, you can ride if you want." I said, "Okay, we'll swap." So I jumped on the horse, he jumped on the camel, and off we went. So eventually I was riding. I spent the rest of the time on Mona Lisa. It was easier to get on and off, less traumatic. So I went around Mona Lisa after that. But yeah, so I did all my spotting of places, and did the obligatory visit with about 1,000 Japanese people around the Sphinx, with pushing and shoving to take images. And I was like, no, I just want to get out of here. It was just so busy, sort of midday. It just got really busy. Um, um, and then
Yeah,
I
they're
just took
used
it
to
easy in
that.
the afternoon.
Like in,
Say again?
you said there was a lot of people from Japan there. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of tourists, a lot of Germans, and a lot of French people, a few Russians. But yeah, it was busy. Early morning's okay, and late afternoon, but rest of the day it's really crazy busy. You really got to pick your time to visit the different sites, because yeah. And plus, for me, I came out to do some energy work and energy research, right? And of course, with a lot of people, it becomes a problem, right, to try and get the
Right.
space.
Mhm. So the first day you went around to just kind of plot where you wanted to go and throughout the rest of the week for your energy research. And so how did
Yeah.
you decide where you were going to go? What drove those decisions for you?
I had some planned in my mind before then. So I had an idea that I wanted to do meditation within the Great Pyramid, and then also around on all the four corners to see what kind of energy I could pick up. So that was on the list, definitely on the list. And then also to find some quiet areas to bring groups out later where we could do a group meditation away from place that was shaded, because the sun can get quite hot, and you don't want to sit and meditate in the sun, especially European types. So that's not going to be a success to do that. So I had those ideas. So I walked after I dropped off my Mona Lisa and Michael Jackson, dropped them off, and then I went off and walked around and visited. Walked up to the security, made friends with the security guys to say, "Excuse me, would you mind if tomorrow I climbed up on the side of the pyramid and just sat on the first stone?" Because you're not allowed to climb on the pyramid. There's a possible 3-year jail and $2,000 worth of fines. You're not allowed to climb on the pyramids because over the years, there's just over 160 people that have died, and that's why they've just stopped it falling off the pyramids. So it's no longer allowed. You're not allowed to climb. So I approached the security guards and asked them, and I made friends here and there, and some of the camel managers got involved, and oh no, I know a better place, and it was all this kind of, oh, I'll show you this and I'll show you that. So there was a lot of networking going on, which is great fun actually. So that was all on the first day, immersed in making friends, and come and see me tomorrow. Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. And of course, you want to see everybody tomorrow, and all in their mind it's just at the end of the day they want to sell you something, right? A camel ride or something, or if they're all in there to make a buck. But it's all part of the fun. It's all part of the culture. So that was on the day that I did that. And then in the evening, resting up, had a meal. And by the way, the food there, I mean, I'm vegetarian, but the food at the hotel was just the families actually live in the hotel on the first floor, and all the guests are above that. And what they did for me is they made food especially for me. And it was just amazing the dishes with pastas and kosher foods. And also I said to the guys that the aircraft's not going to get airborne once I leave this place, because I'm just going to be huge with all it's so tasty, you just want to keep eating. So that was amazing. And then the second night, at the end of that day, I went off to bed, and as I usually do, a meditation before I go to sleep, and also when I wake up in the morning. It's sort of my standard routine. And my meditation sort of fell into sort of lucid dream. When you get that phase where you're going to sleep, and I was in that zone. And I ended up in a really strange story where somebody that I knew was meant to be working with this being, doing energy work. And apparently he had decided to stop working with this being because he hadn't worked through all his fear aspects. And he was afraid of what she would discover doing the work with him. So he decided to stop doing the work. And I said, well, I'm here. I'm in, boy. I'll just opportunity to work with a being from another dimension. Yes, please count me in. And so I was chatting to some people about this aspect, and doing all this volunteering and saying, I'll do it, I'll do it. Basically, they needed, she turns out it was a she, needs somebody that's incarnate to actually anchor, so she can then do the work locally. Because these outer dimensional beings, different frequencies, they need an anchor point in this dimension to do work. Otherwise, they can't actually stay. So, and they use, like, my master teacher uses me as an anchor. And then in this case was similar with this. And then, but he said, no, he's not doing it. So I said, oh, I'll be that. And then this, somebody that I didn't know walked up to me from, there was a bunch of people talking. And it looked like a big, in the old days, they used to have the bed warming pans, like a broom handle with a big copper dish. They used to put coals inside. They used to slip them into the beds in the old days. I don't know if you've seen those before. It was very popular in Europe, in France and in the UK. They used to warm the beds up for the posh people. So this chap came up with this, like a copper, very flat pan. And I thought, what is this? And as he came closer to me, he brought this pan really low down close to my feet and then tilted it towards me. And then I saw these two red balls of light, probably the size of like a baseball size, two of them, come out of this pan and actually come towards my ankles. And at first I was like, whoa, what is this? I was a bit surprised. I've never seen this before. And then as I looked at these two balls of light, I noticed that they were actually surrounded in like a plasma, like an invisible force, like a liquid, but not a liquid, but not a gas. It's that sort of
Like
plasma,
like a gel, like a liquid gel.
like a gel. Yeah, exactly. And this gel was holding these two balls. So I was like, that's weird. As they got really, really close to my ankles, I could start to feel the vibration and the frequency change. I was like, whoa, okay, what the heck's going on here? And I thought, well, it's actually not that bad. So I allowed this to happen. And then these balls started to move up towards my knees and got a bit closer. And I thought, oh, that's not too bad. And eventually it came up higher and eventually was up at my waist height. And as it got up towards my waist height, inside these two balls, I could see some eyes. And I was like, wow, this is weird. There's actually eyes inside these red balls of light. And the frequency now was all the way around my legs. And it was warm, and it was not a high frequency, but it was definitely a vibration. You could definitely feel the difference. And as it got higher, it started to climb higher up my torso. Suddenly the eyes and the space between started to take shape, and I could start to see a woman's face, a girl's face. And I was like, wow. But it was like a loving feeling, like a kind, really, really extremely kind, loving energy, loving feeling. And then I understood, this is, up until that point, I didn't realize this was what the being they were talking about. And so this was happening, and I was, okay, this is really strange. But by now I was really comfortable, and I was happy to go along with this. And then she came up higher, and the balls faded, and it was just this face with this hair and these big eyes. I think you've got an image which I tried to recreate just to get a sense of feeling, and then she started to communicate with me telepathically. And she said, she didn't say too much. It was more of just a feeling. And it was like, so I tried to depict the hands were made of this plasma, this light, and then this face, similar to that, but probably more closer to human than that, but almost like the tall Pleiadians, white, tall whites, sort of like that kind of a face.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was almost like this hand of energy reached around me to my left shoulder blade on my left side, and it was like she pointed at a spot in my back where at times I've had some like a nerve twitchy issue, and she pointed and directly onto this place and just said here, and I understood she was saying, is this where the problem is? And I said, yeah. Yes, and then instantly it was gone. I was like, whoa, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
And then she reached around the other side, and on the other side on the opposite side, a little bit higher, similar thing. And then she said, here, and I said yes, and it was gone. So she did all this healing stuff
Mm-hmm.
with this, literally just by pointing her energy. And she was just, the rest was just this plasma, and there was this face, and then I couldn't see the hands, but I could feel when she pointed, it was like a finger pointing at different places.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really interesting. And then I sensed that she was going to leave, and I said, "Oh, so do you want to continue working together?" Or, and then she said, "No, because you're destined for something else." And then she was gone. I was like, "What? Come on! You got to be kidding!"
So
Just
she
left.
appeared and she healed you. She healed your shoulders.
She did some healing, yeah, which was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those experiences where you get this loving feeling, and you don't want it to end, right? It's one of these really
Mm-hmm.
nice, lovely places. Um, but yeah, she didn't want to work with me. Not that she didn't want to, but she said that apparently I'm destined for something else. So that the jury's out. The jury's out.
Okay.
So I don't know. So that was on the second night, and I was like, wow, what a start to my trip, right?
Yeah, right?
Really amazing. Um, and then the second day is when I went back on a mission. I was going to go and do my meditation inside the King's Chamber
Mm-hmm.
in the Great Pyramid.
Right.
And I went out
That
in
is
the morning because the main gates only open 8 o'clock in the morning. So there's like a queue and to get in, and it's like a half a mile walk up the slope from the
right.
Sphinx up to the Great Pyramid of Cheops. So you
So
were
I
going to
think I
say,
have a picture of that. Let's take a picture of this first. Um, these are the. Let me know when you can you see it now.
yeah. So that was on the day where I was riding with Michael Jackson and Mona Lisa.
Oh, okay,
Where
okay.
we gotten off, and he made me do all these weird poses and take pictures, pointing at the pyramid, all the touristy stuff, right? But it was
Yeah.
great. It was good fun. And in the background, you can see um, in the middle the one with the cladding on top. That's the Khafre, and one right at the back on the far end on the right. That's the Cheops. And I can't remember the
Okay.
name of the one. It's got a weird king's name. But you can see underneath that on the bottom, there's two smaller ones, and there's actually a group of three there.
Mhm.
And then next to Cheops will be the other three. So in total, there's nine. There's nine
Okay.
pyramids in total. So yeah,
Mhm.
so the next day after this experience was my attempt at going into. Well, I did get into the Great Pyramid, but I was as you when you walk up the hill from the Sphinx, and then you turn off to the right and go along the east side of the pyramid, and you go past there's three pits where they've excavated the king's boats. He had three boats. And the reason they had these boats was for traveling, because they only had chariots, and they had boats because they had the Nile. It was the main means of transport. So for them to go to the afterlife was the boat, because that was like the big transport at the time. So that's why they buried the boat, so that they could have transport in the afterlife. So there's these three big pits which They've since removed the boats, and they're going to be displayed in the new museum, which officially opens in July. So you're walking past that. It's on the east side of the pyramid, and as you walk, and the entrance is on the northern side, and you can't see the entrance until you actually go around the corner. And as you go around the corners, there's the car park, and I just saw thousands of people. I was like, wow. Every man and his dog was there. I was like, ugh. So my heart just sank, and I thought, well, there goes my chance of doing any meditation. And there were these huge queues down the side of the pyramid, and I was like, oh, this is not this. My life is over. My mission has failed because there's so many people. So I just resigned myself to this, and I thought, well, I've got my ticket. I'm just going to go in go inside. So I queued up, and to be fair, the queue didn't move too badly, but it was just the temperature, because of all these people inside, was just so hot. If you're claustrophobic, it could be a problem. I'm not claustrophobic, but when in the first part you go through this little tunnel, and you go up through a smaller tunnel before you get to the entrance to the Queen's Chamber, and that's very narrow, and you literally nearly bent double. And if you're claustrophobic, that could be an issue. I'm not claustrophobic, but I thought if I had a bit of a moment, I was like, whoa, I'm in, and there's no way out. The only way is where you came from, right? There's no ventilation. The only air that comes in to the Great Pyramid is where you came from. So all the air inside is fully loaded with everybody's breath exhalations. It's got really, really hot. But once you get into the Grand Gallery, which is like it's like got an apex to it. That climb is quite steep. It's quite long, but at least you can stand upright and walk that. And then the last sort of 30 feet is again smaller, like 3 foot by 3 foot tunnel you go through and into the King's Chamber. And it's a massive relief once you're in there, but at the same time you feel really temperature, and it feels a bit claustrophobic because there's so many people that have been through there. So I had a little plan when I got in there, because I really wanted to do meditation inside the sarcophagus. So that you can see the image there. I was lucky when I went in, because there was a massive queue behind me. I'd allowed everybody to come down the Grand Gallery first, so we could walk up freely, and I'd backed everybody up. So in front of me, there was no one. So when I got there, this is why it looks empty, but there was a huge queue coming up behind me. And the first thing I did is I went straight to the security guard and said, would you mind if I climbed into the sarcophagus for 5 minutes? He was like, what? No, you can't do that. So after some gentle persuasion and waving some dollars, he was like, oh, all right then. How long? I said, oh, 5 minutes. He said, no more. I said, okay. And he went back out the chamber, and he stopped everybody from coming in. And how he did that, he started to point at things in the gallery, and he started explaining things and keeping everybody out. So I quickly jumped in to the sarcophagus. But unfortunately, because of the climb and the heat, my body was still heaving from, trying to acclimatize. And I just couldn't relax. I could feel my heart was pounding in my chest, and I was trying to relax, and the pressure of, I've only got 5 minutes, and it was just the wrong environment, right? It just didn't work out. But it still felt special to actually be inside that sarcophagus, which was used for initiation purposes. That's the only reason it was used, because so we're standing on the south, the cameraman standing on the south side, and on the left is the west side, and on the right side is the east side, and at the far wall is the north side. And the the apex of the pyramid is directly, it's not directly above the sarcophagus, it's actually between the wall and the sarcophagus. So the strongest energy point is actually between the two, which later on, I managed to come back and get access for a second time. And I managed to actually achieve and do the meditation and do all the energy work that I wanted with massive results.
So, can you explain again where the strongest energy point is? Because the King's Chamber itself is where, explain how the energy feels whenever you're in the King's Chamber.
On that particular occasion, in that picture, I couldn't feel anything because the stress on your body of climbing and the temperature is so high on your body that your body's trying to recover, and you can't. I literally couldn't feel anything. Oh, my body was just, my heart was trying to calm down, and I was sweating it was in my eyes, and it wasn't a meditative state of
Wasn't
mind.
ideal, right?
Was not ideal. But the archaeologist that I made friends with, and we're planning on running tours together because he knows all the energy spots in Egypt, all the temples. And we are going to be running some retreats and some excursions to do meditation and energy work in all the places that he knows. And he's got exclusive access. He's connected with the government, and he can get licenses to get into the pyramid for
Well,
only
that's
you and your group.
exciting because I know there's several people that would love to do a tour like that.
Yeah.
That's a little more private, where you can
Yep.
sit and
So
enjoy the energy and feel what you feel.
yeah, yeah. So it was good for me to get the rushed, touristy, pressured experience, so that I could see that it is impossible, almost impossible, to do anything like that with the tourist pressure. You can't feel anything. I went back on the Sunday with him with this he's a doctor. He's the senior archaeologist of the Giza Plateau, so he has access to everything. Everybody knows him. Everybody said to me, "Oh, you're so lucky to be with this man," and he's just like, I call him King Hani Darwish. I just call him King Hani, so he just laughs. But because everybody's like at his feet, so this guy's connected, right? And he's the man, and he will help us. And I'm planning to take the first group in October this year. So we just need to get people together to do that. And anywhere in Egypt, wherever you want to go, he will take us, he will show us all the temples, all the energetic centers. You will not get this access anywhere else, right? And I have the access to this man, and I will be arranging these tours. So yeah, it's all very exciting. And so what I found is when I came back with him on the Sunday, I met with his wife. They invited me for coffee on the Saturday evening, and we sat and talked till 2:30 in the morning, just drinking coffees in these traditional coffee shops. It was just so much to talk about. And then he said, "Oh, we can go tomorrow. I'll take you to the plateau and I'll show you this." And I said, "Wow, okay, let's go." So the next day we went up there, and he took me back into the King's Chamber. And he said to me, "Right, you need to sit there, boom, dump." So I initially sat with my back against the wall. And if you want to, you can sit with your back against the sarcophagus, because that's actually closer to the focal point. It's midway between the wall and this. You can see the sarcophagus we are in that image, and the wall behind it. There's a space between the sarcophagus and the wall, which is probably about 3 feet space. So I sat down with my back against the sarcophagus, facing the north wall. And there were people, tourists. Took me a few minutes to zone out, and one man sort of looked around and said, "Are you okay?" So I just ignored him. I was like, "Go away," in my mind. Then there was an American lady that said, "Is he meditating?" I was like, "Thanks for shouting at me." And one of her friends must have called her away because she left. But I managed to zone them all out eventually, and then things happened. I got lots energy off the charts. My
Did
master
you want to
teacher.
talk about all of that today, or do you want to
No, we'll do that in we'll do it sequentially, because there are other energetic experiences which actually will
Okay.
lead up to that. But it's a lot more than what I thought was going to happen. I saw many, many, many things, and just whoa. And I was given meditations which I will teach people when we go there, nowhere else. How to in the pyramid. I was taught by my master teacher. He arrived and taught me on the spot. So that's going to be all included in those tours that we'll be doing. So exciting stuff. Yeah. So that was the disappointment. So I left disappointed that first day, because there was no chance for me to actually meditate or do anything, to feel anything. My body was just too stressed. So I left that day and went off, and I actually sat outside the pyramid and did a bit of a meditation in the shade. But then I was chased away by security. It was a bit all over the place that day. But it was okay, because I ended up networking with some of the other security guards and some of the other, camel people, etc. So it wasn't a complete loss. But as far as the actual meditation side, that day felt, I didn't feel good that day. I was disappointed, I must say, that I wasn't able to achieve. But in the end, it turns out, as you'll hear later on in the story, it was all happened for a reason, as everything does, right? So yeah. So that was that. That was the end of the pyramid experience. So I went back and disappointed back to the hotel and wondered what next. And I had a plan. So the next day I was going to Saqqara and to Dashur to see the bent pyramid and the red pyramid and the step pyramid and the Serapeum. So that was booked up for the next day. So we left early, did another Mario Kart drive to these places on the motorway. Stuff.
Yeah. I'll put a picture up here of the red pyramid.
It's the one with me standing in front of it, right? I think.
Yeah. So the red pyramid, you want to go in a little bit about that? What is the significance of it? What did you find with it?
Yes, the red pyramid is a little bit smaller. It's probably a little bit smaller than the Khafre pyramid, which is the second one on the Giza. It's the first successful build on that particular plateau. These are the oldest, these three. So you've got the step pyramid, the bent pyramid, and then this one, the red pyramid. The red pyramid was the last one in the series of those three to be built, and is the most successful in its structure and its attempt. The other two, we can call them failed, but they weren't entirely failed, because they didn't achieve the original design they wanted, but they only achieved it on this pyramid, and this model was then used to create the others. So there's a king's name, and it's such a complex name, I can't remember the king's name, but if you Google, you'll see the king's name of these, and he got these built. but again, there's nobody inside there. What they did is they had 3 places for the kings for the procedure. There was a preparation area, and then there was the pyramid, and then there was the actual burial tomb. So they weren't buried in the pyramids. And the jury's out on exactly why that is. There's loads of theories going around. But what impressed me, the construction. And the guide I went in with was very knowledgeable about the construction and the stones and the way they built them. And you can see how they use supports, beams to move the stones, and how they used, they made holes in the walls to tie ropes out so they could climb up, and then to put beams up to move the stones. It was so clever how they did it. And I said to him, how come these people were so clever? And he was like, don't know, they just were. Nobody knows. Just amazing, amazing, amazing stuff. So that's just outside. And then you can just make out there's like a dark spot on a bottom left, and there's like a lighter color going upwards. That's the pathway, and the entry point into the pyramid is actually on the left-hand side. I don't know if you can see that. There's like a shade. That's the actual entrance into it. And then you can go to the next image, the one with the actual tunnel image, which shows once you're up at the top, it's a bit of a climb. The tunnel that goes down, there's there's 3 chambers. What surprised me was, as soon as you went into the tunnel, it was a very, very this image is now looking back up to the entry point. You can see the point of light at the top. The tunnel is 65 meters long, which is about 200 feet, and it slopes downhill. You go down to a depth of about 100 feet, which is 30 meters. So you're traveling down at an angle. But as soon as you start going down, you go down backwards. It's the easiest way to go down. Holding both railings and then just stepping on those rungs like a ladder. As soon as you go in, a few meters, you start to smell ammonia, and the smell of ammonia gets stronger and stronger. I was thinking to myself, well, am I going to survive this excursion into this pyramid? When we got to the bottom, the guide said to me, he said, so you smell ammonia? I said, yeah. He said, it's not a human toilet. He said, I can reassure you. I said, I was just thinking about that. I said, was it used for that? And he said, no, for hundreds, thousands of years, the tomb was inhabited by bats. And it's the bats using the pyramid, inside of the pyramid, as a toilet that's just stained. And you can see on the walls, it's got black markings where the bats just left markings of themselves. So it's quite a strong smell. But I spent probably about 30 minutes inside, and you do acclimatize eventually, and it's not as bad, but at first it's like, whoa, very strong. So you were going to ask something?
Yeah, so this is climbing down. Is that right? You're looking upwards?
Yeah.
Whenever I'm looking at that picture, there's even the picture itself has some sort of frequency to it. I can feel the energy looking at it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's not apparent in this picture. I've got video of when we climbed back up. The guy said to me, I've got a surprise for you. I said, ooh, what is it? What is it? He said, sit down and turn around and look back. So I sat down, turned around and looked back. And he said, look at the ceiling and look at the walls. I was like, oh. I said, oh, it's like a red granite. He said, yeah, that's why it's called the Red Pyramid, because the granite is all red granite. So you get different shades of granite, Most of the granite came up from Aswan, which is right down. They call it Upper Egypt because it's at the top of the Nile as it flows down to Lower Egypt, which is near the Mediterranean Sea. And all the granite came from the Aswan area, which is in Upper Egypt. And you get different shades. There's greys and there's blacks and there's red. And this, they used red. And this is why it's known as the Red Pyramid, because the granite stones are red inside. And the chambers are actually absolutely huge inside. And there's two very, very large stones that separate the chambers. And I think they are 10 meters, so it's 30 feet by 18 by 12 approximately, and they weigh 50 tons. So I was like, so how did they bring these stones inside?
Right.
Just mind-boggling. And the finish is just smooth. The edges, the stones fit together. There's no mortar, or it's just pushed together. It's just crazy. And the entrance is so well cleverly thought out. You enter on the left side of the room, and then to the next room you enter on the right side of the room. And I said, so why didn't they just do a straight? And he said, well, you're an engineer, think about the structural, right? If you put the entrances all down one side, there's a weak spot. So if you step the entrances, you don't have weak spots. I was like, wow, these guys, thousands of years ago, so clever to already understand that level. It's just mind-blowing stuff, right? Just crazy stuff.
Yeah. The precision, all the precision of the stones.
Yeah. And you can see how it evolved from the previous pyramids, where they basically perfected it in this one. It's like everything is just perfect, perfectly lined up, perfectly designed. Really amazing stuff. Very clever. But yeah, so maybe we pause and do another episode later on for the rest of it.
I think so. I'd like to learn more about what's happened in the King's Chamber, because I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, that's the most interesting part.
I had participated energetically in when a group of people I knew that went to the King's Chamber and the Queen's Chamber, and it was quite interesting. So to actually be there in physical form, and I can imagine that there was a lot of magic going on.
Yeah, and from my experience, unless you are an experienced meditation practitioner, you need the tourist to be away. That you might be able to manage it like myself, because we've got a fair amount of experience. But for most people, you don't want the tourist. It's really going to spoil the experience, and hence why arranging these exclusive private access tours where you get 2 hours in the pyramid, just yourself and your group. I can already see it. I can already, I've already got plans on how I'm going to design it, lay it out, have the people, and of course the information I was given, I'll be sharing that. It's going to be wow. And only the ones that are meant to be there, because there's a reason why you turn up there, right? And which I've discovered. Only the ones that are meant to be there. If you turn up, if you arrive and you come to one of these excursions to the Great Pyramid, then you will be given. I will give you the information. I will tell you how to use the energy and what to do with it, because then you will get the result. You are meant to do it, right?
Right.
I won't be teaching this anywhere else but within the chamber, for obvious reasons. But
Yes.
yeah, got to respect the source, right? Integrity and all that.
The ancient secrets.
Yeah.
The secrets revealed.
Well, they're being revealed now, right? Because we are now being given those.
Oh yeah.
So it's changing, but there's
Mhm.
still it's still not for everyone just yet. Not yet. It will be. It will be later, but just not
It
right
will
now.
be. Right. I agree. I am.
Yeah.
Have always been fascinated. Well, not always. I would say the last 4 or 5 years, really fascinated with the Egyptians and all the energy work and all the things that we can gain from them. And this is going a bit off course, but still related. I try to help people understand the powers within them. You have to empower yourself, right? And we just
Yeah.
talked about The Secret, and that's a movie that's out there. But I love the beginning of it because it shows Egypt and the secrets, and so everything's starting to intertwine. So people who are just dabbling in some things, they see all the symbology of what's available and what could be and what's out there, and it's fascinating.
Yeah. And the reason why we chatted so long into the morning with the archaeologist and his wife is because we agree. He comes from a scientific point of view, and I come from a spiritual stroke science perspective. But we agreed on one thing. One big thing is that Egypt was the center of everything. Everything. The source for everything was from Egypt.
Mhm.
Because when all the land masses were still connected, that's why the pyramids are where they are. It was the center of the land mass. It was. Now, of course, all the continents are broken up, and things are spread out. But it was dead center.
Well, there was, you talk about scientific or spiritual viewpoint. Egypt has all of that.
That's what
They
I'm saying.
have,
Everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all the sciencey information about free energy and electric that was used back then. Um, yeah, I would love to ask you some more questions about that because
Yeah.
that fascinates me as well.
And
Whenever,
of course, the Greeks, mathematicians, where did they go and study? In Egypt.
Mhm.
They went to study in Egypt, right? It was everything. Everything comes from Egypt.
Mhm. Yeah, very
But
nice.
yeah, um, I guess we'll have to set up part two.
Let's set up part two. I appreciate you sharing your journey thus far with the Egypt, and I am excited to learn more. And appreciate the pictures that you've sent. I know you have a lot more to go through, so part two um, sounds
Yeah,
sounds wonderful.
exciting stuff. Where we start to discover the energies of the Bent Pyramid and of the Great Pyramid, and
Mhm.
yeah,
All
it
right.
gets more exciting.
Well, thank you, and until next time. Right,
Yeah,
part two.
yeah.